Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo! After deciding to head back to Delaware for one more round of upgrades and repairs, we leave Cape Canaveral and start steaming our way back north. With stopovers at the Mosquito Lagoon, New Smyrna Beach, Daytona Beach, and Matanzas Inlet, the long slog north has finally begun. Alright, let's go ahead and get right into it. Grab a drink, climb aboard, and let's get going. As we began our trek back north, we stopped over for another night of mysterious noises in Mosquito Lagoon. We did anchor twice in Mosquito Lagoon, once on the way to Cape Canaveral and once on the way back. And it was by far the best anchorage that we stayed in the entire time we were in Florida. Florida is very heavily populated, as you would imagine, and right along the Intracoastal Waterway is very popular, lots of homes. Everywhere you anchor, even if you're a little bit off the beaten path, like Matanzas Inlet, you can still see the fort. You can still see high-rise condos or apartments, I don't know what they are, along the waterfront. So there's really no escaping from humanity, I guess, is how you'd put it, or from society. Or yeah, just there's no place to get off the beaten path. And Mosquito Lagoon was the one place that we found that was very rural. It was awesome at night. The stars were great. There was a little bit of light pollution from Titusville to the south and then New Smyrna Beach to the north, but it was very minimal. You have the Cape Canaveral. The only signs of human or humanity that you could find there was you could see one launch pad on the north end of Cape Canaveral, but otherwise it's just completely rural, or just wildlife and nature, which there was a lot of, and it was really great. I really enjoyed the time that we spent in Mosquito Lagoon. Mosquito Lagoon is part of the Indian River Lagoon System, which is a long, wide, shallow lagoon bounded on the west by the Florida mainland and on the east by a chain of barrier islands. Mosquito Lagoon Aquatic Preserve is the northernmost sub-basin of the Indian River Lagoon System and is a bar-built type of estuary. The Indian River Lagoon System stretches 156 miles from Ponce de Leon Inlet on the northern end to Jupiter Inlet at the southern end and covers a full 40% of the length of Florida's Atlantic coast. Mosquito Lagoon is one of the least developed regions on the east coast of Florida. Salinity levels in the lagoon are comparable to ocean levels, allowing several fish species to spawn in the lagoon that would normally spawn in the ocean. And tensions are running high. We're currently in Georgia and it's raining outside, so I've got 3 cooped up dogs inside, making this difficult. But anyway, Mosquito Lagoon also supports the northernmost extent of red and black mangrove habitat, low marsh and high marsh habitats, extensive oyster bars, and tidal flats. During our time in Mosquito Lagoon, we did see tons and tons of life. We saw hundreds of manatees, countless dolphins, so many birds. I mean, it was just crazy, the amount of life that was there. It was really neat. We've seen more wildlife in Florida than we've seen anywhere along the route, and Mosquito Lagoon was awesome. I would highly recommend spending some time there if you get a chance. On our way back through, we did stop at New Smyrna Beach for a few days. Since I knew where everything was, it was a convenient spot to refill on water and fuel. And I had done that just a week earlier, before I had decided to go back to Delaware. I thought I was going to keep on pressing south. But since plans had changed and I knew the area, it just made sense to stop and fill everything up. So I dinghied to town, got our diesel cans filled up, got all of our water filled up, I did some grocery shopping, and I got our laundry done. By this time I had started to figure out the tides and currents in between the inlets, so I was getting a lot better at scheduling stuff, but unfortunately, because the tides and currents are cyclical, and people who know will understand that, otherwise it just sounds stupid. But anyway, unless you want to wait a week, sometimes there's just really nothing you can do about it, and that was one of the situations we were in here. Running from New Smyrna Beach up to the Ponce de Leon Inlet, we were going against a very strong current, and with our claggy bottom, we were only getting about 1.5 knots, which was really frustrating. I would rather watch paint dry, to be honest with you. And we had to try and make it up to the George Mewson Bridge. It's a bascule bridge that has to open for you. And during the day, it only opens every half an hour. And I knew I wasn't going to make it, but I dropped the hammer down. I was going as fast as I could. I got her up to 1.8 knots. And thankfully, I got so lucky because the bridge will actually hold its opening for commercial traffic. And there was a barge behind me, about 2 miles behind me. So the half a mile that I needed to cover, he had closed up and the bridge opened. So I could sneak through. It was about 5 minutes later than it was supposed to have, but hey, it saved me half an hour and that was awesome. So Providence showed up and it was awesome. After leaving New Smyrna Beach, we stopped for the night in Daytona Beach, and just like the first time we stayed there, we heard sirens all night. Daytona Beach kind of seems like a crap hole, I'm not gonna lie. So I was curious, so I looked up the crime index, or the crime statistics, and the crime index is 6, with 100 being the safest. So it's only safer than 6% of US cities, which is not great. And the odds of being a victim of a violent crime is 1 in 98, and being the victim of a property crime is 1 in 35, which is astonishingly high. So I'm glad we were on a boat on the water. Nothing happened. We still had all of our stuff in the morning. So yeah, doesn't seem like a very nice place, but I'm sure it's a perfectly nice town. The opinion of someone passing through. We got up very early the next day and tried to leave at first light because we knew we had a long push up to the Matanzas Inlet. And on a day like that where you're motoring for 12 hours, you're going to get, no matter what time you leave, you're going to get an advantage from the current at some time, and then you're going to get dinged against the current on some times. So we were struggling up front. We were only going about 2.2 knots to start out. And then as we got closer to Matanzas Inlet, the tide started going out, and we were actually doing 6 knots at some points. With our claggy bottom, that was doing really well. And I should have just sucked it up and spent a day cleaning the bottom, which I didn't do until Georgia, and we would have had better speed going through, but I just wanted to get moving. So I should have cleaned the bottom earlier. But we did make it into Matanzas Inlet okay. We got there at low tide right when the tide was transitioning. We made it around. If you're ever going through Matanzas Inlet, there's really bad shoaling on the green side of the channel. Always stick very close to the red side. I'm talking super close, like uncomfortably close to the shore, and it's deep. You'll have no problem. If you do get on the green side of the channel, especially at low tide, you're going to ground. There's just no getting around it. So they really should either dredge that or move the channel markers. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. So we did make it into Matanzas Inlet, where we anchored for the evening. The next morning we got up early and I flew the drone so we could check out Fort Matanzas and the surrounding area.
The sky is so pretty right now. I wonder if your pretty eyes see it. I need a good love. I wonder if you're ever gonna be it. In a couple weeks I could drive away and you could find another victim. It's not your fault I feel this way. Senseless with no direction.
This town is a lot of things, and gets you down, it lets you bleed. And I need to get out, but I can't find a ticket to leave. In a couple weeks I could drive away, and you could
couple years and a little more gray, we'll stop dreaming about each other. It's no one's fault, we'll find a way to get senseless for one another. Yeah, we'll get senseless for each other. Where do you go when the lights are turning off? Where do you go when your hopes are falling from the windows? Where do you go when it feels like you'll never be enough? Couple weeks I could drive away and you could find another victim. It's not your fault I feel this way, senseless with no direction.
And that's all we have time for this week. I would love to give a massive shout out to our Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I would not make these videos, so thank you so very much. And our Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Joan and Jim Linbo, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, and Matthew Spotten. Thank you guys so very much. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up, and that'll give you access to a bunch of behind-the-scenes photos and videos. I try and do updates at least 2 or 3 times a week to let you know where we're at and what's going on. And if you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps us out a ton as well. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.